Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Larry Auerbach is a licensed clinical social worker for the last 20 years, practicing in Port St. Lucie. He's been married for 30 years, has a son who's an elementary school principal in Concord, North Carolina. Larry enjoys writing, fiction books in particular, gets a sense of adventure from writing, finds it very relaxing and stimulating to be able to tell an exciting story and entertain and educate people at the same time, which he does in his books. We'll be talking about one specifically on the program today, Common Threads. He is a member of the Western Writers of America, is working on his third novel, where he returns to his favorite setting, the Old West. Look for familiar faces from that period as his characters cross paths with some of the legends of that era. I mentioned on the program today, we're talking about Common Threads. We'll be talking in a few weeks with Larry about his book, The Spirit of Red Mountain. Our guest on the program, Larry Auerbach. Larry, welcome to the program. Pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Rick. It's my honor to be here.
I mentioned that you really enjoy depicting the Western life. Talk about that and that fascination you have and when this all started for you.
It started about 7 years ago. And the fascination is it was a totally different time. Sometimes people try to judge the names of the past by the standards of the today, and that doesn't work because it was a totally different culture back then. I guess one of the leading members that gets judged harshly is Wyatt Earp. He's remembered as a frontier legend, a hero, lawman, but he had his dark side. He was into gambling, he ran prostitution, but back in those days, it wasn't that big a deal. It wasn't an offensive thing, and it was a normal thing that people did, men at least. Doc Holliday was a gambler, but that was considered a profession back then. So I like to try and put myself in their place, in their time, and see how they would have interacted.
And you do that so nicely in Common Threads, and at the beginning of the book, you do sort of a character development. You let us know who some of the characters are we're going to be reading about in the book, and you do put all of that in there. I mean, these people like to shoot other people, too.
Well, they did. Some of them did, but even today we have school shootings of people who enjoy hurting other people for no reason other than it gets their name in the paper. And, the personalities haven't changed a whole lot from 1860, 1870. We still have sociopaths, we still have heroes, we still have people who are just trying to get along. It's just different tools.
Yeah, that's interesting. If you think we've really come along as a society and you stop and you consider that, we have basically the same problems. It's just the weapons of choice are a little bit different than they were when you write about this back in the era of Common Threads. Let's talk about your fascination, not only with that era, but deciding to write the book. You said that you've always enjoyed telling stories, entertaining people. You've always enjoyed reading books. When did you take that plunge to okay, I think there's a story in me that I really would like to tell, and now's the time to do it?
My wife and I were on our way to Orlando for a workshop, and we entertain ourselves while we're driving by recasting movies, current movies, and who would we cast, or older movies, and who would we cast now. Well, we started going from some of the movies, and we went to the movie Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Somehow that became Seven Badges for Seven Deputies, which was a play on the Magnificent Seven. And from that, I started thinking about what would make seven men of different personalities and different goals get together, and how would they hold up? And it just kind of coalesced overnight, and I just started putting pen to paper. And it kind of wrote itself.
The book is called Common Threads. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Online.com, Bookworld.com. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on and get all the information, not only on the book, but where you can actually order the book. Let's put this in some type of historical background here. What particular era are we talking about?
This is Reconstruction, when everything Abraham Lincoln tried to do started falling apart. And the post-Civil War South started trying to rebuild their control over minorities, over the black man, by undermining the laws and working around them. The Klu Klux Klan came into being there, for courtesy of General Nathan Bedford Forrest, and they were some pretty radical and maniacal people. And I made a combination of Forrest and some of the other people as the lead antagonist. And I just kind of put myself in each character's shoes, how would I respond if this was my background? And that was the reason I did the backgrounds in the front, so I'd have a better idea of who I was working with.
It's interesting. You lay it all out, and as you read the book Common Threads, you've got some idea who these people are, what made them what they are today when you go through that. I mentioned in the beginning that you're a licensed clinical social worker. In developing characters, does that help you? You understand what makes people tick?
I like to think I do, and yes, it does help, because I think about people I've worked with, and I know what dynamics create what outcomes in terms of human behavior. So by knowing that, I could create a history for somebody and then create their present behavior based on that history and what I know the impact that childhood would have on them or those traumatic experiences.
The book is Common Threads. It takes place in Pinetar, Alabama. Here's a city that was basically ruined and burned out almost during the war between the states. Talk about that particular town.
Well, Pinetar is, like you said, almost desolate. They were ruined by the war, as many southern towns were. And their only hope at rebuilding is the story that federal money is coming in for the Freedmen's Association, the Freedmen's Union, to build schools and help the new freedmen develop homes. Well, certain people want that money, and there are other groups who are trying to just, on general principles, run the blacks out. And there are some people who have some secrets of their own who are coming in and find that they have a lot more in common than they thought.
And this is a town that really has no industry. This is a town it's rather bleak for people living there. The carpetbaggers are coming to town, but also holding out hope that maybe industry is going to come and these people could have some jobs.
They might if industry gets there, but the KKK is going to ruin that chance because no northern business is going to support an industry that's violating the civil rights of the newly freed slaves. So they've got to keep it quiet, and they've got to make it look like the former slaves are leaving on their own.
Enter a US Marshal whose job it is to come in and to drive the Klan out of the town.
If he can.
If he can. I don't want to give away too much here, but if he can. And this is really, this is a challenge, isn't it, for him?
It's a great challenge because he's nearing the end of his career, and he's got people working under him who have their own agendas, as happens today. You get people who have a good goal, but they're working with people who have their own agenda for whatever reason that may not be compatible with the overall program purpose.
And the town itself, Pinetar, Alabama, has secrets. People there have secrets. The town has secrets. 20 years before this, before you write about the book about the town in the book Common Threads, there was actually a black man murdered there and a real scandal.
Correct. It was a scandal that was hushed up for a number of reasons. I don't want to give away too much. And there was a witness to the hanging. There was a lynching, and there was a witness. And the lynching itself was for more as a cover-up. And the witness finds his way back to Pinetar to try and even the scales, you might say.
Okay. You wanted to write a book that you would enjoy reading and get away from the old tired plots that are out there. I mean, you pick up some of these books and, third chapter, you know how this is going to end. How challenging was it to come in and put your spin on it? By the way, our guest on the program is Larry Auerbach. If you look for his book at Amazon, Larry's last name is spelled Auerbach. The book is Common Threads. The book is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble online, bookworld.com. Also available at our website. You can link on to Larry's information on the book as well as being able to order the book. The book is called Common Threads. So how difficult was it to basically do something with not only good story but some substance to it as well?
Well, I had to pick a central issue and build everything around that. And then once I knew what the mystery was, it was how does everybody else figure into it? What's their reason for being there? What's their reason for reacting the way they are to what's happening? And because everybody has their own issues, and many families were split during the war, it was brother against brother. So you've got some divided loyalties that are at work here. And that plays into it. And it was just, what do I know about this person? Well, how would they be likely to respond if given this situation?
And as you're reading the book, you're always sort of like thinking ahead, trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen next, because it is not that predictable at all as you're reading. There are always surprises and twists and turns as you're reading. The book is called Common Threads, and it's gotten a lot of very good reviews. One I was reading and we'll go back to your casting movies, said they could actually see this as a movie. They saw Tom Selleck as the lead. Would that work out for you?
Tom Selleck, I love him, but I think he might be good for the marshal. I could see him as a marshal.
Yes.
The man I pictured for one of the soldiers, one of the deputies, has passed away, so I can't use him. Tom Selleck would be good. I'd love to see Sam Elliott in it again somewhere. I just love Sam Elliott. I think he's a natural for Westerns. And there are a lot of good younger actors I think could fill in here. That the man who's doing I'm drawing a blank. The black guy, the singer. This is embarrassing.
Not sure who. We'll keep talking, and then it'll hit you as soon as we start focusing on something else.
Chadwick Boseman, who played Jackie Robinson.
Oh yes, yes.
I think he would be good for part of this in this too. I'd like to stay away from really recognizable names other than Elliott or Selleck, because then people start looking at the actors.
Yeah, it sort of gets in the way of the story, doesn't it? When they're focused on the performance
as much as possible.
The book is called Common Threads. Larry Auerbach is our guest on the program. It is now available in book form. Hopefully, at some point, would be available in a movie. Let's talk a little bit about developing all the multiple storylines, the multiple characters. How difficult is that to sort all of that out, and how do you go about doing that as you're going through the book? Because you got a lot of storylines, and they all sort of come together.
Well, I start out with a storyline, and then each character has their storyline and where it's going to go. And so once I know how each person is going to play out, then it's just intercutting their stories amongst the other threads.
Is this fun for you? It's sort of like your own fantasy world as you're writing this.
Guilty as charged. It's great relaxation. It's a fantastic hobby. It's a sense of accomplishment. I like a book that has pages. I grew up on books that had pages. I'm not into Kindle. I want to be able to turn a page and take myself to another world, another time. And it was just a blast to do.
Well, as you're reading it, yeah, you do get absorbed, and you're reading and you're looking forward to the next chapter, and it's hard to put down. As you're writing the book, and you obviously have become very close to these characters, they are your creation, you're writing these characters, the storyline is flowing through the book. Is it difficult to say, okay, it's 10 o'clock at night, I'm going to do something else, and can you turn off your mind to the book, or is it constantly you're sort of kicking around scenarios?
It is downright impossible. Even while I'm working, I'm thinking about it. Anytime I'm not working with a client, I'm thinking about it. I have ADHD, and so my mind is always running. And so that helps me focus on something that keeps me busy. It keeps me occupied, so I don't go nuts.
Well, the book is an excellent book. It's called Common Threads. And in the book, you mentioned that you thank your dad for encouraging you to read, and Mrs. Jackson, a teacher, for encouraging you to write. Talk about your dad's influence. And obviously it was great, and he really wanted to make sure that you understood and appreciated what it's like to be able to sit and read a book and escape.
My father would not, I did not get a lot of toys growing up, but my father would get me any books I wanted, any research materials, any World's Book, Grolier's, Lands and Peoples. I must have had 10 different sets of complete reference books at home, multi-volume sets, 10, 12, 20. I had a membership to Book a Month Club every month because he liked to read. My father believed in education, and he wanted me to be prepared for the world. He was kind of gruff, but he was my hero. And the other book that we're going to talk about next time, he's in that book.
I'm anxious to look at that. Yeah, that's the spirit of Red Mountain, which we'll talk about on another program with Larry. Larry Auerbach, our guest on the program. A couple minutes left in the show. We're talking about his book, Common Threads. I mentioned the teacher, Mrs. Jackson, encouraging you to write. What grade was that when she thought she saw some talent there?
Well, in high school, we had to do book reports every month, and I didn't have the patience to go sit in the library and get books out because I had so many more books to read at home. So I would make up my own book reports, and I got A's on all of them. And I thought I was really clever until I graduated, and when I went around to her office to get her to sign my yearbook, she wrote in there, "I hope someday you write all these books you've read."
You thought you were pulling one over on her. She knew exactly what you were up to.
But because I was demonstrating creativity and ingenuity, and I was doing everything she wanted me to get from reading, she never said a word. She let me go on thinking I was fooling her.
Is the process of writing for you as fulfilling and entertaining as reading?
Probably more. Reading is fun. It takes me to some place that I have never been or that was, but I get to create when I'm writing. I get to create a world that is everything I want it to be or everything I'd like it to start out to be, so I can change it with my characters and make a difference. It's better than reading.
Yeah, there is a level of participation in that where everything is there that you're creating. Now, when you're writing and people are reading and enjoying, you've got this sense that, okay, I do need to do my research. I do need to make sure this is authentic. How much time do you spend in researching that era?
A lot. I have a personal library of over 435 volumes on the Civil War, the people and places of the American frontier period. And I constantly reading new ones, constantly checking for dates, what happened in this period. Did this happen? Who is here? If you think about the research that's gone into making of the AMC show Hell on Wheels, it's just like that.
An excellent program, by the way, and we've had the stars of the program on the program before. Common Threads is the name of the book. As we wrap it up here, this is set in a city called Pinetar, Alabama. When you're writing about areas like that, have you been to towns like that? Is that where you draw from?
I did not been to a little town like Pinetar, but I grew up in Stewart in the late 40s, early 50s. It was a very quiet, small town. And I've passed through some towns on my travels out west that were equally small or smaller. There's one town that has one street, and I've seen some ghost towns. So it's not hard to picture what it was like. And if I do my research right, I know pretty much what the people are going through. Because the struggles with finances and providing for their family, we still have that today.
It's amazing, and that's where we started the program, talking about the violence, and it was a violent time back then, and people would just shoot people, and as you point out, they still just shoot people. So not a whole lot has changed in the financial struggles in towns that go up and down dependent on the economy. It's an excellent book. It's called Common Threads. Our guest on the program has been Larry Auerbach, Auerbach. Common Threads is the name of the book. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble online, bookworld.com. And, of course, you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on to any of those sites to get information on the book. Larry will be back with us in a few weeks. We'll be talking about another book of his called The Spirit of Red Mountain. Larry, it's been a pleasure to have you on the program. Really enjoyed having the opportunity to read Common Threads, and looking forward to having you back on the program.
My pleasure, Rick. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
You're welcome. You're listening to This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us.